Hello, hello everybody, and welcome to our panel tonight. I'm Addison Gruber. I'll be facilitating the panel. I'm an AmeriCorps member with the Hancock County Planning Commission through the American Connection Corps. And tonight we'll be talking about digital communications and engagement and best practices for municipalities. And I'm grateful you're all here today. So these are our panelists. We have Matt Williams from Ellsworth, Ray from Sullivan, and Kathleen Bell from the University of Maine. And I'll allow you all to talk about your roles and introduce yourselves. And we also have Kate DeFore online, who couldn't be here today, but we're grateful she can join on Zoom.
Hi, I'm Matt Williams. I'm the current interim city manager for the City of Ellsworth, regularly the city planner. And why do I think digital communications are important for municipalities? I'm answering the phone.
Yes, same.
It's digital communication is just the way that information is kind of gathered and shared nowadays. There's certainly people that still use more tangible ways of collecting information, but it's a cheaper and easier way to get the most amount of news to the most amount of people. That's communications are super important between a municipality and its citizens.
Ray Weintraub, Sullivan Town Manager. I think digital communications are really important for transparency. That was one of the first things I was told coming into my job is, people want to know there's a transparent activity going on. And the best way to do it is tell them what's going on. Tell them that there's a meeting, tell them what event's happening, because then you're telling everybody on multiple platforms, no one can say, I didn't know. And encouraging those dialogues amongst people, tell your neighbor, tell your friends. It's important, and it does. We have seen impact on it, so I think that's really good too.
Hi, my name is Kathleen Bell. I'm a professor in the School of Economics and an associate dean in the College of Earth, Life, and Health Sciences at UMaine. I think digital communications are important for municipalities because I think they're a key means to help strengthen community and economic development. And I think there's a strategic strategy going forward for more inclusive communications in some instances, as well as helping communities navigate change and times of crisis.
So, good evening all. My name is Kate DeFore, and I am the Director of Advocacy and Communications for the Maine Municipal Association, and I'm also a Hollowell City Councilor. So I come to this discussion from those two viewpoints. First, I want to thank you for the accommodation for Zoom and apologize that I'm going to probably stop my video when I'm done speaking because I feel like I'm lording over the other panelist here. So, so I just kind of step it back a little bit. But with respect to digital communications, I think that's the future of local government. I know we're talking about communications, but the digital world provides all sorts of opportunities to conduct government or provide government services differently. What comes to the top of my mind is again, not directly communications, but the way in which we protect valuable records, that we archive records. It'll become less expensive, easier to store massive amounts of information and protect it. You hear of stories of town offices back in the day burning down and losing really vital records. This will help assure that we have those records. With respect to the topic of digital communications, I'm going to repeat much of what has been said, but from my perspective, it provides an avenue to communicate with all stakeholders in your communities. We often hear from the vocal majority. This provides an avenue for the silent majority to participate in a way that makes it more comfortable for them. So we see it as inviting feedback from elements of our communities that we don't often hear from. And the more we hear from everybody in the community, it enables us to make better decisions and decisions that are supported. I mean, I'm sure many of you are familiar with working hours and hours on an ordinance only to have a town meeting vote it down because they weren't involved in the process. So I think this is a really good way of being far more inclusive with whomever in our communities wants to participate.
Thanks, Kate. And to give you an idea of the structure for tonight, we're gonna have about 40 minutes where panelists are gonna ask some questions we would have given them. And then we'll have half an hour after that for our audience questions and answers. So if you think of something while the panelists are talking, write it down, save it for afterwards. And then after audience Q&A, we'll have one more rapid fire question for our panelists. So going into our panel, we're looking to hear some stories about resources, strategies that you will have used and become successful in your towns or environments. Ray, I'll start with you. So for those of you who might not know, Sullivan has a population of roughly 1,200 people. And so Ray, what digital communication tools have you implemented in Sullivan? And how have you approached shifting from doing things the way they've always been done to convincing people to try to use more digital tools?
Well, one of the ways we did right off the bat, I was there a couple of days, and the importance of getting the sign out in front of the town office working again was quite strong. It had been used quite often for all different communications, and all of a sudden, for about 2.5 years, it was not functional or very minimally functional.
Something that working was imperative. It took a whole one phone call.
It worked horribly. In this room, it works pretty well. But it's just when you think you have it, you might not have it. So be able to be flexible and adjust. We increased our presence on social media platforms, making sure that the current Facebook post was on the town website was current. Only found one flaw in that whole thing. The Facebook insert for the town website updated every 12 hours. Well, what good is that when things are happening every 12 minutes? So we changed it to a half an hour. Now people can actually find out this road's closed, this is going on, that's not going on. It's the little details that you kind of overlook that you have to, again, verbally engage with people and say, so why'd you miss that? What happened? Did simple things like engaging people through running a poll on the town website. You know, we're gonna have a logo contest. What do you think? And you get input from people, and you have people walking in the office. Hey, tell me more. What's going on? As soon as people are walking in the door telling you they saw something on social media, they saw something on the website, you know it's working. And it's a success. And where do we take it from here? There's a bunch of different services and applications that are out there where you can actually have for a fee, of course. They build you an app for your town. And anytime something happens, you can put in, you know, Johnson Road's closed, you know, keep for updates. And it'll shoot out an app to the device. It'll crank it out to Facebook, send people an email. That's so great. And using the technology is fantastic. One of the obstacles that we have is, well, I only have a flip phone. How do I participate? I don't know. I only get the library is the place I get my computer stuff. What do I do to get that email? I don't know. How do you expand? How do you bring the World Wide Web to the world that doesn't have the technology to connect from their home? That's, I think, the next step that you have to delve into to figure out. Now you have all your efforts that you're doing. How do you connect with the people with no connection?
Thanks, Ray. Next, we'll move on to Kathleen. Kathleen, you've led research that examines rural community resilience and e-government. Based on your research, can you share some stories of successes in really small communities and using digital tools?
I'd be delighted to share some stories of success. I want to acknowledge that I'm a part of the team. And since 2020, I've been working with faculty and students from University of Southern Maine, Bowdoin College, and UMaine. And we've been focused on looking at municipal digital activities in Maine and identifying opportunities to improve and perhaps strengthen those activities, better understand both the opportunities and challenges in that digital space. Recently, the students on our team inventoried all municipal websites in Maine. And we tracked the extent to which municipalities use digital platforms, provide information digitally, support digital service transactions, or foster civic and community engagement using digital tools. So I'm going to draw my examples from that inventory that our students have created. And I'll focus on communities with populations less than 1,000. I was really excited to hear your firsthand account, Ray. So I'll have to go back and look up Sullivan in our database after tonight. I'm gonna, given the theme of digital communications for this event, I'm gonna focus on two types of communications. And the first, I'm gonna present an example from communities' use of digital platforms. And in our work, we assess municipal use of digital platforms by examining whether or not municipal governments use websites, Facebook, X or Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and digital alert systems. And a top performing small community based on our data set is Vinyl Haven. Vinyl Haven uses a website, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and digital alert systems for communication. And by digital alert systems, I'm meaning systems where local governments can quickly get out information to citizens, and in many cases in a tailored format. So it was exciting to hear, I think, Ray talk about some of these options. And I'll give you just some detailed examples from Vinyl Haven. Vinyl Haven right now allows members to sign up for different types of alerts. They can range from emergency alerts to the latest news from the public library to critical information about important town committees. So it's quite impressive for a small community to be offering this type of system. A local example from Hancock County, given where we are tonight, would be Castine, also a small community, also using multiple platforms and a digital alert system. And these are recognized as important for communities, especially for times of change, during crisis, and to give citizens an option to tailor the type of communication and announcements that they want to hear from their local government. I brought, because I'm old school, I brought the Orono Observer. This is the paper, non-digital newsletter that I get my information from. But I can also sign up at the Orono website for more tailored delivery of information. But for this, I have to spend time looking through for the information that's most important to me. If I take advantage of a digital system, I can have news and announcements tailored to my interests. The second example I want to talk about based on our statewide inventory relates to how municipalities can use digital tools to foster civic and community engagement. And to assess this, we looked at municipal websites for three things. Do they have some kind of tool or app for citizens to alert municipal officials about issues? Right, so instead of municipal officials pushing out news and announcements using a digital alert system, we're talking about the reverse. Are the communities using tools to encourage citizens to provide feedback to them? We also looked at the extent to which municipalities were hosting hybrid meetings like this event, using digital platforms that allow for true participation by community members. And the last thing we looked for is the use of tools like the poll Ray mentioned. where communities were intentionally seeking feedback from community members in a participatory manner to inform discussions around issues or policy decisions. And an interesting example from a small community here is Rangeley. And Rangeley allows for community members to submit citizen requests to different departments and officials and track these requests at their website. In addition, they use different digital tools to encourage community members to hold discussions. And they also use different tools to provide feedbacks on issues and decisions. And a local example that I checked out today from Hancock County, a high-performing small community, is Eastbrook. At this moment, if you visit Eastbrook's website, community members who visit the site are encouraged to help improve assessments of cell phone coverage in the town. Also, they can answer a poll about whether or not Eastbrook should allow ATVs on the road or pay for an extra sheriff's patrol. So this is an example of two perhaps different small communities, but engaging with the same tools, but doing it in a way that is tailored to the needs of their community. Fostering civic engagement is recognized as in some ways the most advanced form of e-government. It's the least common type of digital activity that you see in communities in Maine and beyond. And I think we should celebrate the fact that in Maine, both big and small communities are wading into this space. I want to acknowledge that I shared these examples of success, and my assessment of success here is very much based at this point in time on the data our team is collecting. And we know that the on the ground success is going to be best measured by conversations with actual municipal officials in the town and community members. And in our future work, we'll be interviewing municipal officials to get their perspective of both the successes and the challenges related to the variety of digital activities that we looked at. We did this in the past where we intensively studied 50 coastal communities during the early stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. And we found the combination of the data we were collecting with information from municipal officials themselves really allowed us to get a nuanced sense of their experience with our digital communication and other digital tools. So I ask you to stay tuned. We'll have more to say on this. And with that, I will pass it on to another panelist.
Thank you, Kathleen. Next, we're going to move to Matt. So Matt, for a little context, if any of you here on Zoom aren't familiar with Ellsworth, it's the largest municipality in Hancock County with about 8,000 people.
Closer to 9,000.
Closer to 9,000. Okay. So Matt, my question for you is, what do digital communications look like in the city of Ellsworth? And how have you seen these digital tools make the lives of staff and municipal officials easier? And what have the challenges been?
So we're pretty spoiled in Ellsworth. We have a full IT team of 2 people, both full-time. We have a part-time communication specialist who will hopefully be full-time this coming fiscal year. And I think most of our digital communication can break down into maybe like 3 categories of like event-based, project-based, and then ongoing or day-to-day city business. For event-based digital communication, we obviously have pretty good capability to do hybrid meetings in multiple locations in City Hall. We have our city council chambers, which has like a giant screen TV with a Zoom bar, but also has 4 cameras that are interconnected to give different viewpoints, zoom in, and allow us to live stream to YouTube and Facebook. Mall events are going on, like council meetings or planning board meetings. And we can also record them separately and post them to other places as well, like on the website if we want to. We also have an auditorium upstairs, which can be used in a similar fashion. It has the same Zoom bar and big screen TV, but doesn't have the quite as advanced camera setup. And then we just recently opened a fire training room, which we also use for community meetings. On the rare occasion, but it's happened already in the short time it's been open, where we have 3 public meetings going on at the same time in the building. And that also has the same Zoom bar, big screen TV set up for hybrid meetings, and then you can record on Zoom and send out the recording later. And then in terms of project base, we're also undergoing a comprehensive plan update. And so working with our consultants on that project, we've been using Social Pinpoint to interact with the public in different ways. Social Pinpoint allows us to create surveys pretty easily, and multiple surveys at one time if necessary. There are certain digital tools that allow for mapping exercises to get feedback on more physical locations in the city. People can drop pins and leave comments on what they'd like to see, what they don't like that's there already, and other opportunities or challenges that they see physically, which would be much more difficult to pull off in a live setting where you'd have to have a giant map out and try and write notes on it, make sure everyone can be heard and read it. So this makes collecting that type of information a lot easier. And then additionally, it also allows us to share out some larger documents easier. We had like our inventory analysis document was about 300 pages. And if I tried to email that out or post it to Facebook, it might have been too large of a document, but having it hosted on a website that was specifically for the comp plan with other engagement tools allowed people to, who are already looking at that page, to find it much easier. And then day to day, so we have a part-time communication specialist. She manages our Facebook page. She has time Instagram page, and then her and IT will monitor the YouTube live streams that get posted. And then also daily, we have 4 live streaming cameras from different viewpoints of the city, whether it's our Harbor Park, down 1A for people to check traffic. We have a communication tower that also has a live look at different traffic in the area. And from the top of City Hall, so you can look down Main Street and see what's going on, down our downtown from a live stream on YouTube. And then we also have these, as Kathleen was mentioning, some forms for the public to provide feedback to the city. So on our website, we have like a fix-it ticket program for public works issues. If there's a pothole, a road that you think needs to be managed better, or plowing that maybe hasn't gotten done in a timely manner, the public can send in a fix-it ticket, and that gets emailed directly to our public works, our highway superintendent, and our communication specialist, and then the city manager. And so if there's multiple people who will see it and can respond, we're working hopefully in the next year or two to get this text alert service for the public, where they can sign up for specific texts, whether it's City Hall closures, road closures, water main breaks, that sort of thing. Cost is still somewhat prohibitive for that, just because of our population. The text cost is based on the number of texts you're going to send, and because our population is larger, it would be a little bit prohibitive cost at this point, but it's still something that we're looking into. And but we do on our website have listservs for email that people can sign up for to get alerts like that. So just check boxes for what they're looking for, whether it's public notices, which is usually agendas, for public meetings, that sort of thing, or if it is like public works updates for closed roads, water main breaks, and that sort of thing. So there's a different variety of ways that digital communication gets used in Ellsworth to interact with the public. It certainly have made the lives of municipal officials and staff easier. Again, like having that open communication with the public can be a really great thing. You get a lot more ideas from people that may not have been able to interact with you otherwise. As Kate mentioned, it lets you touch base with a portion of the population that may not be comfortable walking to a city council meeting and standing on a microphone and talking, or they can anonymously provide feedback if they'd like, or at least if it's just an email or like a web contact form. Allows you to start a one-on-one conversation, which most people are more comfortable with than being out in public and projecting. And then there's the flip side of that, where it also just makes us easier to contact, which is a good thing in a lot of ways, but also, sometimes you got to actually do work and not just be reading emails or contact forms all day. And if you don't respond in a day or two, people think you're ignoring them. So some of the challenges, we're still working out some things with the hybrid meetings, particularly in our council chambers. the Zoom bar microphone works sometimes it doesn't. And then inside of that room, we also have microphones that try and project the audio, but if you're doing a hybrid meeting and you turn the speakers up louder so that people in the room can hear what's going on, it creates a feedback loop and then it distorts and makes it hard for people on Zoom to actually hear. And so we're trying to figure out the right balance for that still. And yeah, I'm trying to think, I don't know if there's too many other challenges.
Thanks, Matt. So now we're gonna hop over to Kate. Kate, through your work with the Maine Municipal Association and as their liaison to the legislature, can you tell us what resources you know of for municipalities looking to get started in digital communications, and how are digital opportunities and challenges being talked about at the state level, and how do you expect these conversations to impact municipalities?
So I'll start with the state conversations, and I'll just take us back to the pandemic. And out of the pandemic, we identified two silver linings. Two really good things came out of the pandemic. One is the increased use of online services. So communities had to close their doors, but municipal government never stopped. But they still had to provide services. And you saw a lot of communities embracing online motor vehicle registrations, online dog registration, the ability, linking to resources, other resources to get absentee ballots, for example. And so it really set the stage for communities to become far more comfortable with those types of services, which is a public service. Not everybody can get to the town office to register a car Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. So it built that familiarity. The other is it provided an avenue for communities to test remote meetings. 4 years ago, this would not have been possible. And as a result, remote meetings are being used across the state. We had advocated for easily a decade for that authority. Municipal officials were saying this would make it much easier to get people to run for office if they were occasionally allowed to, Zoom in. And it helps to get people, bring people up to speed as to what the municipality is doing. I mean, if you have a couple of kids and the council meeting or the board meeting starts at 6, you can use, we in Hollowell use Zoom. You can be feeding kids, taking care of homework while keeping an ear and an eye on what's going on in the city of Hollowell. And so we, as an association, saw it as a very important tool. But for that decade that we had been advocating for it, we received a big fat no from the Maine state legislature. And I think that response was twofold. One, there are some members of the legislature at that time that didn't think we could be trusted with a tool, that members of the council or select board would run for office and then stay in Florida for 8 months out of the year. And there's an important element of that I don't mean to dismiss the Maine state legislature, but the underlying message was that if you're elected to office, you should be facing the people that have elected you. You should be making very difficult decisions in where the public can see you. And so we kept being told no and no and no. Again, from our perspective, not only was it a way to get people involved, people informed, it was also back to that silent majority, the silent majority, getting them involved in community activities. Again, making sure that we had everybody's buy-in as we move forward with, comprehensive plans or budgets. And so we had made that pitch for years and years and years. When the pandemic came along, we were given that big test. We, via executive order, were allowed to hold remote meetings. Now, the problem with that is when the pandemic or when the emergency ended, municipalities were no longer going to have this important tool that we had grown to enjoy and benefit from. But for the first time in that last decade, the legislature was open to making the authority permanent, and they did so. And so as soon as the emergency was over, the legislature enacted remote meeting legislation. And at first, it was incredibly prescriptive. There were only 4 reasons for why a member of a public body could participate remotely. And it didn't entirely work for every municipality, but it worked for some. The very next year, the legislature itself came in and said, hang on a second, we see the value in this tool, and we're going to make it far easier for municipalities to use. And they basically, within a year's time, said, here, municipalities, you're authorized to do this. You adopt your ordinances and you figure out how best to do remote meetings. There are parameters. I mean, if a member of the public body, the board or the council is able to participate remotely, so can members of the public. So they provided the guardrails, but they gave communities flexibility, and that's enabled a lot of municipalities to really embrace that process and get people involved in important public discussions. Now, as you know, with new tools come new problems. Zoom bombings, they're serious business. The city of Hollowell has been hit twice. The first time it crippled us. We stopped the meeting, we canceled the meeting, and we just went on our way. It was just, I don't know if any of you have ever been Zoom bombed, but it's disheartening. It kind of shakes you to the core. The second time we were Zoom bombed, we were more prepared to do it. We had tools in place, and although it was equally as jarring and some of it very frightening, we were ready. And so again, so we had to accommodate, or we had to be prepared for what might come. We too use Facebook. A lot of communities use Facebook. In Hollowell, we decided to shut off the comments and provide it as a push process, that the Facebook page would be used to push information out to residents, because we found that the comments and the back and forth were generating misinformation, putting people on their heels, putting people in a defensive position. And we really wanted to avoid that. There is a time and a place for public discourse. Showing up to meetings, public hearings, that's when we have those conversations. And so we made a difficult decision to say, okay, we're just going to use this tool to push information out to our residents in a different way. So that's kind of what we've seen, very, very important. With respect to the first part of the question, which is what resources MMA provides and what we can do. For those of you who don't know what MMA is, we are a membership organization. The towns, cities, and plantations are our members. Of the 486 communities, I think 482 are our members. So we have basically every town, city, and plantation a member of the association. They pay dues, and in return they get services, legal services, advocacy, communications, education services. We also have a risk management program that provides public officials liability insurance, workers' comp insurance, that's for an extra fee. And then we have the health trust, which provides municipalities with a variety of insurance products. But for the most part, we are directly responsible for assisting communities get to where they want to be. So when it comes to digital communications and remote meetings, we have a variety of legal documents. We have documents on how to deal with public comments at public meetings, right to know law, which is very important in these discussions. We offer a newly elected officials training program, which covers a lot of communication related issues. And we're also promoting UMaI's cyber range program, which is really helping communities free of charge. This is a system or a student-based project that was established in 2022. And it allows students to go into a community and do a really good assessment of what the threats are in their community. If you're going to open yourself up to using more digital communications, you need to be prepared for what's out there. And so those are the tools that we are providing municipalities who are interested in, moving into that digital communication realm. With respect to the conversations at the state level that are currently happening, I think there are two. One is security, basically moving communities off of their regular websites into the .gov domain, so that signals to somebody who may be hesitant to use online services that if it says .gov, it's secure. The community has passed every penetration test possible, and you can trust this site. The other, and I think we touched on it a little bit, is how we expand broadband throughout the state. Somebody mentioned there are communities that just don't have it. I mean, there's simply no way to engage electronically because you don't have the infrastructure. So it's trying to get over those hurdles to make certain that we can expand broadband in every community and then make certain that it is reliable. So that's my answer to the question.
Thanks, Kate. So we have a little bit more time with our panelists, so I'm going to open this question to any of you. So what partnerships have you either used or have you seen in other communities that have helped build communication or digital infrastructures, like libraries or community centers, school districts?
Well, I know our library that we have, which is it's not funded by the town, but our library is housed in the same building as our recreation center, is the same building as our historical society. And including them in what we do, digital communications. One of the first things we had an obstacle with was there was no calendar. So you had to go by a list of, on every third Thursday this happens, every second Wednesday that happens, and you're like, where am I now? So one of the easy, cheap things that I found was, here's a calendar, it's free, it's a thing you can stick into WordPress and you go. But then it was, well, can we get the library in? Can we get thrift storing? Can we get yeah, sure, give me everything you got. Because it also came with the subscribe to our calendar button. Well, that made things easy. So as far as pushing stuff out, if it's on the calendar and you're looking, it just made, that was the good partnership, being able to pull in community partners and tell me what you got going on. It's in the newsletter anyway. Let's just push it out. And if you really want to go crazy, you go for the paid version for $100 a year. Then I was able to take stuff like select board meetings, planning board meetings, everything. And I have now currently scheduled until 2029. Set them up once, make a series, boom, and it goes. Within the events, you can put up the agenda. You can put up everything, links, pictures. It's movie day at the library. Boom, there's the movie that's happening. By not so much what partners we work with, it was working with our partners and bringing them in. They had Winterfest, which was the ice fishing festival. Guy said, hey, can you put it on? Got it. Went on the sign, went on Facebook, went on the website. He was the featured calendar event. And you just, whoever needs you to help broadcast their information, that the calendar was probably the easiest thing that we did. And that was on the cheap, which is nice.
I want to just kind of follow up on Ray's comments with two different types of partnerships. One, just historically looking back, when we were looking at community responses in the 4 years ago or so, in the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic, it was amazing to see some of the partnerships in both digital and physical spaces emerge and help communities. So you saw a lot of parents with children in schools and school systems leading the way on communication as households, families were struggling with issues. And then you saw unique collaborations on how to get information out. We also saw evidence of unique, beyond schools, different groups partnering to meet the basic needs of community members around sharing digital information about food pantries and access to other kinds of resources. And all of this, you could almost see over time these, in a way, building on Ray's comment of these partnerships building on one another. And going back and forth from physical spaces like us gathered here to their use of digital communications. And in some cases, it seemed to be strengthening the partnerships going forward. But also just a different kind of partnership we observed in our most recent statewide data collection effort was that some really small municipalities are partnering even on their websites. So I can't remember the specific towns, but you can imagine a situation where you aren't blessed like Ellsworth, you don't have IT staff, you have limited resources. And we saw in our most recent data collection, at least 2 efforts where websites were shared by 3 communities. And I think that's a different type of collaboration in terms of wading into this space.
So one project that Ellsworth worked on for our Economic Development Department was called Discover Ellsworth, which was a website to try and help rebrand and push out some more of the reasons to live, work, and visit Ellsworth. But of course, that includes community partners like Woodlawn, their new event space, the Grand, which is our historic theater downtown, and others. And so when building out that website, it's in an early iteration now, but our staff had to collect data and information from all these community partners, see how they wanted to present themselves, put out some information, and then receive feedback. And then there'll be a second iteration of the website where it gets updated with newer events, calendars that people put together for their own organization. And then there's also the hashtag Discover Ellsworth on the website. If people post Instagram with that hashtag, it has a generated feed of photos that pulls from Instagram to reflect, where people have been, what they're doing. And that's just a specific project, but on a regular basis, a lot of communities and our community partners in Ellsworth are sharing each other's information for events, our public library or chamber or downtown organization, the city itself. Just swap, posts or share, repost posts, just to make sure we're all making sure the information gets to as many different people as possible. Ellsworth is a little bit of a larger city. It also has a lot of people that work here that don't live here. So we're getting different types of populations coming throughout the day and at different times. So having those staggered posts for different venues kind of makes sure that more people see that information than otherwise would if it was just one organization posting over and over.
All right, thank you all for all your thoughtful responses to the questions. And now I want to open it up for our audience, question and answer. So if you've been holding on to questions during the panel, now's the time to pull them out. Yes.
Matt, you mentioned that Ellsworth is working on their comprehensive plan right now. I was curious, just being aware of how important it is for residents to get information digitally, if there's any plan to include a section on digital equity or broadband infrastructure in your comprehensive plan. If so, how you're going about that process.
Madison, can you repeat the question for the folks online?
Or Matt?
Yeah, so the question was, during our comprehensive plan update, how are we making sure that digital equity and then broadband access are being included in that plan and process? So it's a couple of ways. So Ellsworth does have a broadband committee that meets regularly, and they work through different ways of figuring out where in the city needs broadband access or where the priority should be for broadband. Ellsworth is a very large municipality, so our urban core mostly has full broadband. There are parts of the city that don't have any access to broadband still. But with the way that Fidium and the state are kind of building that infrastructure out currently, The city is looking to kind of turn its attention more to in access for individuals, making community hubs for broadband access, so we have a lot of people that kind of work remotely, that come to Ellsworth to find places to use broadband from neighboring municipalities. So we're looking at making like our community center, our library, our innovation center, and I think one of the schools, probably the high school, as like a kind of like a broadband hub or digital hub for community members from the county to come work in, or to use that space. Like our library has computers for the public, our community center has computers for the public, but just making sure that that infrastructure is as open and accessible as possible. And then the city also owns some portion of the city is city-owned broadband infrastructure. So the main purpose for that is to make sure the rest of broadband goes down, that the city can maintain, communications for emergency services. But again, like, so our innovation center is fed by that city-owned broadband infrastructure, which makes it like a more of a, if even in the event of emergency or short notice of some type of the rest of the private infrastructure fails, the city will have a place for people to be able to access broadband infrastructure on 24/7, well, nearly 24/7. In an emergency, we'd probably open it up 24/7.
Thanks, Matt. Any more questions from our audience here?
We can read it out. So Miles Smith says, great discussion. Curious to ask the panelists, what do municipalities need from the state and nonprofits to better serve their citizens' digital needs? Miles is from Maine Connectivity Authority.
Great. So the question was from Miles on what municipalities need from the state
And
nonprofits.
Money.
Let's say it again.
Money. But besides that, I think, like in Ellsworth's case, it's less about trying to reach out and spread broadband as far as possible. I mean, it's something that will likely happen. Ellsworth is a growing municipality. It's always been one of the fastest growing municipalities for a while in Maine. And the more that the need, people move into homes that are around lakes or further out from the urban core, the private sector will likely fill that in along the way. But I think coordination with projects in the city for installing that infrastructure would be good. We have dig once, so it's kind of a policy where if you're gonna tear up a road to put in water and sewer, other infrastructure, putting in broadband infrastructure as well. Making sure that timing is right, so that you're not tearing up a road, paving it, and then a couple months later tearing it up again to put in another set of infrastructure. Some more communication or ways to be in touch with that would be helpful. And then just, I guess, more education too, not just for municipalities, but for our citizens. Some people, as Fidium's kind of rolling out in Ellsworth, they did a good job of going door to door and trying to get people the information directly, but people aren't always home. It was also during the summer when, again, like a lot of locals have their own businesses or are out when the economy is a little bit more active, and they missed the boat on that information. And so just finding out, talking to staff and the community members on the preferred ways that the community likes to receive information and then tailoring it to that community.
So money, yes, money. But the real thing is, it's the money for necessarily the equipment. So when we do a meeting like this, I have an owl that I borrow from my age-friendly group. I have a TV, not like this, something we got at a Walmart. And so it's not really conducive to the size of our space. Always playing, can you see the TV? You're playing, duck around to make sure everybody can participate. One of the first comprehensive plan meetings that we did via Zoom it felt like a hot disaster because we tried to be all together so we could be around the owl, but then the TV was over here and then someone talked, you're going like this and you're looking and the Zoom's over here and you're over, it just makes you feel real weird. So the equipment to properly set up a room, I mean, the sound in here is great. We did public engagement at our rec center. The speakers are really great if you're playing music. For talking, horrible. The sound was over there. This couldn't pick up, so the owl was trying to pick up over there, but it was focusing on the table full of pizza, not the person talking over here. It better equipment to take the technology that's out there and bring it, you know, bring a quality product out to the person that is watching at home, you know, or on the device or anything. As far as the broadband, I mean, if you don't have a pole running out to your off-grid place, at least you can get a Starlink set up and you could do something with that. That's always available. But it's about having the funding for the person to afford the Starlink. And the funding for the person to afford the laptop or the desktop or the smartphone. Those are the things people can't necessarily, they can't, it's that one last link. You know, you've done all your grand efforts to get your stuff out there and be ready to bring things to people. But the funding for us as a municipality, yes. But maybe some kind of a program or discount for the folks that can't necessarily afford to make that last part of the connection in their own house. That would be a nice way to go.
I would just add the two things that we're hearing from our members. I think I would couch in navigation services. One of the big issues is pole attachments that are in public utilities and the costs associated with that. And how do we provide communities the tools so that they can more easily connect to the infrastructure that exists. The other issue that has just come to light are, and nobody's going to resolve this tonight, but IRS implications that make it more difficult for a community that gets a grant to provide that revenue to a third party, or particularly a private third party. There are tax implications, and in two cases, one in Fayette and one in Wayne, that tax liability caused a private developer to pull a project that was really going to connect those two rural communities. So it's navigating those issues that pop up just when you think you're ready to pull the trigger.
Thanks, Kate. Go for it, Andrew.
I don't know if it was Ray or Matt, but, do Hancock County municipalities convene meetings or work together to strategize about how to increase access or communication regionally, or is really everyone focused on their own? I think that was the school districts, because people are focused on their school district. And so what is that method? Many people from outlying communities come to Ellsworth to work, but that doesn't mean they can necessarily access systems when they get home. So I'm just curious, how do municipalities work with, or do that?
So Andrew's question is, how do municipalities in Hancock County work together on digital communication or strategizing as a group?
I'm always open to any collaboration. So the hardest part that I see is that we're all so busy doing the regular stuff. The availability of time, unless someone's going to schedule something, we're usually not available to do it. So it's creating that window of opportunity where we can go and meet together and go, so what do you got going? I got this going on, and just, you know, pull together our, you know, where we're at, where we're looking to go, and get a collective thought process on where we can do it together. I'm a big proponent of municipalities working together. That gives you a better, it's a better buying power. It's strength in numbers, whatever it is, but it can usually help get you a better opportunity, maybe a bigger voice, and get a better deal somewhere at some point. What do you think?
I agree with Ray. You know, communication and collaboration are always good between municipalities. You know, time and like resources to be able to do that on a regular and effective basis, is tough. But that's where an organization like Hancock County Planning Commission comes in, kind of acting as a voice and connector. For those municipalities, getting them in the same room during board meetings or, just holding community events like this. And so it makes it a lot easier. You know, there was a lot of collaboration going on in Hancock County now. You know, it's more focused on like housing, transportation issues, workforce development. But, you know, broadband is another, item that ties into workforce development in a lot of ways. So it's more about just, again, I think what Ray said, someone deciding that's important and engaging the rest of the stakeholders and whether or not they agree with the best path forward.
I love that question about collaboration, and Kathleen, you just spoke to some small municipalities partnering on website development. In your research, did you see any other forms of communication, of collaboration around strengthening digital communications?
Good question. I mean, our wonderful team of almost 10 students, you know, only recently finished the inventory. And so I'll put in a plug for the students who will be presenting in Augusta at the Maine Sustainability and Water Conference next week. They, as the people on the front lines, and we did double entry on all municipal websites, would be in a great position to answer this more fully. And it's something it's, you know, again, our detailed work back during the pandemic, we saw evidence, just like I think Kate used the word silver linings, and I remember an MMA report that said that communities that had existing partnerships with other communities and NGOs before going into a crisis, whether it's the pandemic or some of the back storm events we had or an economic shock, can sometimes pivot and use that collaboration in a different way. And so I think there was evidence of collaborations in one space now informing peer-to-peer learning and knowledge sharing in the digital space. And so whether it's knowing about somebody's opportunities, being able to go in and get a better deal, I think all of those things are on the table. We'll be looking for more of what we can see in our data, but I really think when we speak to our municipal officials, they may be in the best position themselves to give us that front lines account of the importance of that coordination. One thing we do is we're often mapping our results. And again, this is more from the researcher perspective of when we see these strong patterns, and in some cases, we see strong regional patterns in the adoption of different digital tools. And it begs the question, are they working closely with one another? Or is there a strong regional organization like Hancock County Planning Commission that's helping them all succeed together? I think in reality, it's probably a mix of both. And you know, I'll let the municipalities speak for themselves and what they want from NGOs and states, but I do think fostering coordination can really help us perhaps avoid some costly mistakes as we go forward and make sure that we're bringing everybody along and not leaving someone.
So you've been asked what you need from the state and NGOs and things like that. What do you need from the public?
Yeah, so the question was, what do municipalities or other groups need from the public in this work?
I guess the most important thing is always engagement. You know, like Ellsworth has a broadband committee. Not every municipality does, with people who, you know, live and use the service, providing feedback on what they want, what they'd like to see. That's mostly what our job is as a public official. Is we're driven by what the public wants and what they'd like to see. You know, whether or not we fulfill that perfectly is up for debate sometimes, but that's ultimately what drives our decision making. So people don't act like they care or aren't talking about a certain topic, then it's probably not a focus for us. But so using their voice is probably the best thing we can get from the public.
Yeah, feedback is probably the best. I get feedback from my wife. You know, I like the new picture you put on the website. It's monopolizing the entire page when I look at it on my phone. You gotta fix it. All right, is this better? Up. No, now it's a little off center. So it's positive feedback. So it got me to do stuff like, so I'm there on WordPress and I'm putting stuff in. Well, there's that little button. You can look from your live screen. What does it look like on a PC? What does it look like on a tablet? What does it look like on this tablet? What does it look like on a phone? So how do these things translate? And I've changed the different modules and stuff I use within WordPress to make things flow seamlessly from one format to the other. That's simple feedback. The colors you're using for text, stop. Just one color, pick a font, use that font. Yeah, it's the simple little feedback of this is unreadable, that's unnecessary, and what you're doing is way too much. That's real simple feedback that you want someone walking in the door and going, I like what you did, but just, you know, we all, you know, you have to have a thick skin. So, you know, we get that in all the meetings and everything, but this is almost like, it's a soft thing that you're doing out there. So to have some hard feedback on, you know, what you thought was just an innocent, the stupid sign out in front of the building, I can't read it. What? People said, can you put more messages on the sign? Sure, I could put 15, but you won't read any of them. So I got it down to, I drove speed limit past this way and that way to find out that the most I can put is 3. I was doing fancy animations, let the thing scroll in and slide in. No, it took too much time. It posts, next one, 2 seconds apiece, that's all they get. Because that's all you're gonna see when you drive up. You'll see 3 going out of town and 2 coming through town. So 3 is the most I can do. I'm sorry, can't do it, 3. Because that was feedback. And that's just a LED sign out in front of the building. So that is the most important thing.
Can I be unconventional? Sorry, I would also add this patience, because I know they won't say it. Working with all the municipal officials and staff that I do, they are all overworked and have so much on their plate. So when your municipal officials do take the time and are focused on these issues, so providing feedback and doing so with patience. I mean, we deal with it in with our group running these hybrid meetings and the challenges that we run into. So just a little kindness and a little patience goes a long way when your municipalities are trying to work out some of these issues. So.
Thanks, Avery, for reminding us to be kind to our municipal officials and with everybody. Yes.
Happily question for you. You mentioned in the research that like towns like Ronald Haven and the fire, good examples of small towns that are doing a lot of communications things really well. Did you find specific markers for why they're doing well? They have to have a data scientist on the select board, they should all be educated that they put more budget money into it.
So I'm just gonna repeat the question, but it was asked, are there markers for specific indicators of what works well and what tells you that a town is doing well in this area? Kathleen.
Sure. And I'll start by saying, great question.
And in particular, small towns that generally.
Yeah. Yep. And again, we haven't got there yet. I can tell you from a pilot we did with 100 communities in Maine first, it's kind of a test. We established some broad trends using the quantitative data. They won't be shocking or surprising to anyone in this room. We saw strong correlation between more adoption of the different activities we were tracking as your population increased, as the form of government that you used was more representational. So moving away, say, from just town meeting to, you know, in some ways, what we were trying to demonstrate to a national and international audience was that a lot of the work in this space focuses on big cities and big cities only. And we are saying more attention has to be placed in rural areas. to look at what's happening there. And so the whys, in the different types of communities, that's front and center for the next stage of our work. I can speculate on some of the things we saw, for example, many of the examples that I'm talking about. Or that I noted even earlier, and I can see from some of the patterns in the data. Are they high, do they have big summer populations? Are they high tourist communities? You know, are there just different demands for these services in some of these places? I also want to be a little hesitant and just recognize and celebrate the tremendous variation in our communities. And even though sometimes one way that we assess performance with our current data is we're summing things up in categories, but more isn't always what the community wants. And so we also recognize that, you know, communities have to tailor their digital communications and other digital tools. They need to right size it to their community, its values, its resources, and in some ways, its preferences for local government. You know, because what we suspect we observe in the data are real differences. But some of the hypotheses that's like my fancy word, that you threw out, you know, is there a data scientist or a retiree or a class, a group of young folks that are really interested in digital tools? We can spin out a lot of possible drivers, and I welcome suggestions from people, but at this stage, I don't have the answers for you, but I can tell you in our pilot work, we definitely heard from municipal officials of instances where in some cases, it really was one person really advocating for the change, whether it was a municipal official in the town and bringing others along in some of these small places, or a committee member, whether they're on the broadband committee or somewhere else really pushing it. One thing that concerns me when one person is really leading it is the sustainability of those efforts over time. And I can tell you from visiting different websites, you can see that some haven't been updated. And so, you know, again, I'm spinning out the short answer to your question is, I don't have all the answers on the why, but it's something that's front and center and of great interest to me. And quite frankly, many students on our team who happen to come from small communities in Maine. And they care about their communities and other small communities, and they want to better understand this new digital space and what it will mean for the future of their homes.
Thanks, Kathleen. Yes, Cindy.
Sort of on the topic of small communities, but also this region of tourism, I'm curious if municipalities are handling the communication differently when the summering influx comes in, because they are summering folks anyway, are part of our communities.
I'll let you know when I get this. No, it's I've only been doing this in September, so this is still, it's a growth process. So yeah, I would like to be able to pay attention and have more and better. I mean, I'd like to have the nice fancy sign out in the front that's more colorful and informative as the people are, you know, shooting down to your end of the world. That'd be great. But that's $25,000 that I can't just click my heels and make appear. So I have to keep going with what I had. But yeah, we do want to get more out there and more something where we can pique people's interest to go in and look and see while you're driving over to Scoodic, what's going to make you stop, because you're planning. You're sitting at your home, you're in Jersey, you're in New York, you're in Baltimore, you'll be looking, figuring, what's my plan? Where are we gonna go? Oh, there's a lot of traffic getting to MDI. What am I gonna do? Oh, this other side. Oh, I can just take one through there. Oh, look at all this cool stuff. So you're planning your trip. So it's kind of our responsibility. We'd like tourists to come and spend some time and spend some money in our town. I have to present them with what's going on. What's interesting? Why should you stop? You know, maybe it's an improvement on the town part of the newsletter to feed more information out. But we're working on that. And take any technological input we can get.
I would say, I don't know if it necessarily applies to Ellsworth the same way it may to other like counties or Hancock County communities, but just from what I've just observed, it might be easier to communicate in summertime because there is more going on, and so other people are creating the content for you, which is a huge piece of digital communication. So it's easier to share what someone else has already made, and you leverage, that community partner and their resources, and having to feel like you have to spend your time making it yourself or tailoring it to your own audience in a way. So just again, that collaboration piece is probably more important in the summer than when there's a lot going on. And then the winter time when maybe it's a little bit slower.
We have a time for a few more questions. Anybody out here? In the chat. Yeah, Bria.
So climate change, my question is in the face of some of the weather events that we've seen, how have you witnessed, and Kate, I don't know if you've seen this, if you can speak to the broader, response at the state level, or some of the conversations that might be happening at the state level, might be a nice place to start. But how have you seen digital tools be used, as a response to a lot of the weather events that we've been, seeing?
So, I think that question was kind of directed at me. If I'm wrong, sorry to step on toes. I'll speak from Hollowell's perspective, and I think this is true for many communities. I mean, we have a mighty Kennebec River that runs through our community. And with these storm surges that we've been experiencing over the last few months, it's not uncommon for the water side of the community to be flooded. And we have found that developing and I think this applies to every community, developing a communication hierarchy helps get the messages out in an appropriate way. And normally there's like 3 levels of communication. One is it's your own opinion. It doesn't matter. You don't have to check in with somebody. If somebody asks you an opinion on a particular ordinance, you're free to do it. The second layer of communication is when you have to get information out in an emergent way, and it has to be consistent. And I think you see a lot of communities using that level of communication. Everybody uses their own Facebook. They use the town website. They use whatever tools they have to get the messages out. And I think that's most effective when we're talking about these storms and the flooding. People who live on Front Street, get your cars out because they're going to get swept out. If you have issues with electricity, here's who to call. And so we've been encouraging communities to develop those hierarchies so that you know exactly what tool to use in what situation. And I'm not sure that answers your question, but I think it's important that, particularly with these weather events, you get the message out as quickly as possible, but that the message is very consistent so that everybody has the same message and the same information, and the same, they're put on an equal playing field when it comes to making decisions for themselves.
And Matt and Ray, I don't know how you've seen that show up in your own communities.
I mean, I don't know that we're looking into those text alert messages to be able to get out information faster into different group of people who maybe aren't checking their email, or their inbox is flooded, for emergency responses like that. And we use our website as a tool on Facebook as well. But I would say we haven't quite developed a specific response for climate related, incidences outside of our normal emergency alert systems.
Yeah, same with us. It's relying on the regular resources. It's the Facebook, it's the website, I've gotten a call on a Saturday. Oh, by the way, this, all right, I'll jump on, hold laptop and just, and you try and do something that's a little, not just someone's already put something on Facebook, but something a little more representative of what's going on. Maybe it's a map shot, this tree's down. We've had an issue in a neighboring town that was affecting traffic, and you won't be able to go through, so just letting you know, it's shut down from here, and just trying to get updates, fire chiefs out there, hey, what's going on? Is it open yet? No, not open yet. All right, good. Let me know when it's open. It's never open when you're awake, but that's fine. But not just the one single method. The website, I think, is probably really good because it's, people, what's going on? Because I know if they go to the website, they'll see the Facebook feed. So if someone's doing the Facebook feed and the website, you always have, it's a dual verification of really what's going on.
Right.
So that's, but nothing specific at all.
And having to map your students' next area of study, please.
I'm making a list. I'm trying to wait for my strong closing, so.
All right, well, thank you, everybody, for all of your questions, and thanks to the panelists. Thanks for making it here tonight. Thanks for people for watching us on Zoom, and we're gonna ask our panelists one more rapid fire question. So panelists, what do you want municipal officials to walk away with tonight?
I guess just in the theme of technology, it's don't be afraid to try new things. A lot of stories from Ray and myself tonight about just getting outside of what's always been done and just looking for resources and ways to test out, the newer things that are coming down the pipeline. There's gonna be kinks and bumps, but ultimately you're probably gonna be better off for it. If not, we learn, which is important.
Whatever you do, you're not gonna break anything. I mean, it's the internet. It's not gonna damage it. Whatever you do, you go, oh, well, you tell people if you're really gonna try something that's new, you let people know in the front, we're gonna try this. So if it blows up and it doesn't work, you go, we're not gonna do this again. So there's this sense of, we're not dead set, we're gonna make this a success. No, things you do may not work well. You may put some e-poll on, and it's just the execution of that version of it was bad. Okay, good, scrap, we're gonna try something else. The different systems which can text your phone and do with it, there's a bunch of them out there, and they all have different price points to lure you in. You're like, this one's a lot less money, but it does a whole lot less than the other one. But then it's a matter of bringing it back and selling it in a budget meeting. All right, do we have $4,500 every year forever? And they're like, what? Yeah, I want to send text messages to people. What? Are you crazy? So it's about getting people to buy into what you're looking to do and the value of it. So maybe that's it. It's the value of the technology that is being used to broadcast message and ideas.
First, I would just encourage people to, seize opportunities to learn from the experiences of other communities. It's been great learning from our other panelists here today, and I know from our work that there are many other communities to learn from about both successes and challenges. So I encourage officials to think about that. Your communities best, be open to just tailoring what you do in this space to, again, meet the values and the needs and the resources of your community, and not to discount the importance of digital equity, which came up before. The last thing I'd say is, I'm here representing UMaine. I'm a big believer in our land grant mission. I do my work to help strengthen Maine and Maine's communities. So I just open a line of communication, digital or not, with the audience and officials here, that we welcome your feedback on our work of how to make it more useful for you, and if we could be of any assistance. Thanks.
So in the vein of being a broken record, I think the takeaway is that trying new things, particularly digital communications, will enable the community to reach people that are generally not being engaged. And that's, again, an incredibly important part of of community and decision making.
Thanks, everybody. I'm gonna throw in one more very fast rapid fire question.
You only said one.
So found a municipality who has been inspired by this panel. What is the one first step you would recommend that I take?
Come talk to us. I think the collaboration piece and, sharing knowledge is important. You've heard some of our experiences. We'd like to hear yours and, we can exchange ideas and learn from each other. So I think that's the easiest one.
It's okay to say you don't know something. I sat down to do the town website. I didn't know WordPress. Luckily, I could just Google how to learn WordPress and go figure it out, how to do this, how to do. But to tell somebody, I don't know, that's sometimes the scariest thing they can put. Well, you're the town official. How do you not know? I don't know. That's the best thing someone can tell you sometimes is, yeah, I don't know, but we're gonna go figure it out. It's the follow through that's much more reinforcing than beating on your chest about what you know when you really don't.
I would say look to the young people in your community as a resource. I'm often, and I shouldn't just focus on younger folks, but there may be other super digitally savvy folks in your communities that can be a real resource. And I've seen some other entities create really novel programs to help have people assist others in making advances around digital related goals. And I think that's can be a really healthy relationship for all parties involved.
And I would say similar theme, look around, see what other communities have done. You can Frankenstein it if you want, if you like a bit of what this town is doing and a bit of what another town is doing, reach out, do the networking and build what you want for your community. Others have, I always say that our communities are a third and a third and a third. They're a third that will jump on the new ideas and kind of make the mistakes for the rest of us. Then there's those of us in the middle that are kind of waiting to see what's the best approach. And then there's others that it will take some time to come along, but look around, somebody's done it, and you can make it your own.
I want to thank again all of our panelists for being here today and sharing their knowledge with us. Thank everybody who attended today and thank the Island Institute for sponsoring this event. If you're interested in a follow-up conversation, more on this topic or ways to strategize, maybe regionally or communities working together, please sign up over by the pizza table and get everybody together in the future. So thank you all for coming and have a great night. And please stay